Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you all today. I'd love to hear where you all are joining us from, and any burning questions that you have, you can just leave in the comments section. I know a lot of you kind of pop on here and there, or a lot of you are maybe watching the replay here later. You're going to get so much out of this session. I consider Marisol a friend as well as a peer, and she is the founder of Secret Squirrel Consulting, where she helps veterans, transitioning service members, and cleared professionals to successfully navigate the career transition into the civilian workforce. She's also a Navy veteran, resume writer, career strategist, and a sought after speaker who I've had the pleasure of watching live a couple of times at different conferences. Marisol does specialize in helping secret and TS cleared professionals to help translate their military experience while maintaining OPSEC, which is always tricky. And we've talked about that a lot in person. And she's going to share with you her insights on resumes in a very practical way, where you're getting the behind the scenes of what she would typically do with a client. And if you want to work with Marisol, I will have a QR code at the end. So you have to stick around to the end to get a link to her calendar, her precious, precious calendar, because she is, again, very sought after both as a speaker and a resume writer. So I'm really honored to have her here today. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Cassie Hatcher. I am the CEO of Career Confidence Resumes. I also work with military that are transitioning into the civilian workforce or the federal space. And I work primarily with senior leaders, senior enlisted officers who are targeting six figures and up. I'm a certified professional resume writer, a certified veteran career strategist, and an Air Force brat. That is my connection to the military. So I'm going to let Marisol take it away with her resume. That again, thank you. I'm honestly not exactly sure who provided this, but thank you for providing your resume and letting us critique it. Everyone has something that they can do better on their resume, so just take everything with a grain of salt. Marisol is very straightforward, and I appreciate that about her a lot. So, oh, good. We got people from Houston, Jacksonville, Honolulu, Las Vegas. Holy smokes. And feel free to comment. We're not going to address the comments right now. We're going to save that for the Q&A after Marisol does her resume review. So feel free to comment, and but I'm going to go ahead and turn the comments off for just a second so that Marisol can see the resume pretty clearly. Marisol, does that look good on your end?
Yes, I can see it. So instead of instead of like killing you guys with death by PowerPoint, I just had talking points for you, somebody to see if that's what they prefer, because I know not everybody likes PowerPoint presentations. But I want to say thank you, Cassie, for inviting me, and I want to also thank everybody that's joining us today. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to share my recruiter insights and resume writing insights to help you guys not make the same mistakes that I made when I was transitioning out of the military. My very first resume was atrocious, and I didn't realize I was making some of the mistakes that I'm going to discuss today. So hopefully you'll learn from these lessons learned, and also from the recruiter insights as well. And I work, like I said, like Cass already said, I work with hundreds, thousands of transitioning service members, veterans, and I have screened thousands of resumes. So I see a lot of common mistakes, a lot of common themes with transition service members and veteran resumes. So I'm going to cover those today. Okay, so the very first reason that some of you with clearances will get rejected is because you don't have the required clearance. Some of you may have a clearance that's inactive and you may not know it. And so this is why it's important for you, for those transitioning, to get a letter from your SSO, FSO, whoever your security manager is, that shows in a memo when you were last adjudicated and what your clearance eligibility is. This is for you. This is not for the employer. They're not going to ask for this, so that you're aware of when it will become inactive. And some of you think that because you just had it renewed or re-up, that it'll be good for the next 5 years. It's true if you're sponsored for those 5 years, but if if you're not being sponsored for 2 years, it will go inactive. So be mindful of that. Keep track of that timeline. Again, number one reason people are getting rejected is not having the right clearance or having an active clearance. If you see a job description that says must have an active top secret clearance with a CI polygraph or full scope poly, and you only have a TS, SCI, or a secret, you will most likely get rejected because they need that person with that clearance ready to go on day one. Now, if the job description says must be willing to obtain a CI polygraph, and you already have the TSSCI, then that means they're willing to sponsor the CI polygraph. So you can still apply to that. You still have a good chance of getting selected if you also meet the other requirements. But yes, it's important to read the job description, make sure you have the correct clearance. And the employer will always verify your clearance anyway before moving forward. So that's how they find out usually if it's inactive. And that's happened to me a lot where people just transition and they're in the middle of getting readjudicated. And because they left their command before they were adjudicated, they get dropped from the system. So now they're in limbo and now their clearance is inactive. So it's important for you to keep in touch with your SSO and follow up, make sure that they're doing their due diligence and not just dropping you from the system, because once you separate, you're no longer part of their system. So they'll just drop you. So make sure you verify that before you leave. And a second reason why a lot of you are getting rejected, it's because you have to remember it's civilian recruiters that may have never served in the military, especially the intelligence community or anything that deals with top secret stuff. They don't understand a lot of the languages. So I see people using a lot of military language, jargon, military titles, military acronyms. And so I know that you're qualified because I have the background. I'm a secret squirrel myself, so I can read between the lines, but a lot of civilians don't know what these acronyms mean. And a good example that I see a lot is people writing NCOIC of Into Department at INDOPACOM. Civilians are like, what the heck is an NCOIC? And what's INDOPACOM? And what is an N2? So those of us in the intelligence community, we understand it. Well, like, oh, okay, we know what it means, but a civilian may not know that. So you may want to civilianize it. Actually, need to civilianize it and say you were the intelligence director at supervisor leading, use metrics whenever possible, 15 analysts, 20 analysts supporting Asia Pacific operations, especially if you're applying for a role that's looking for an INDOPACOM background or CENTCOM. So instead of just saying CENTCOM, spell it out of the location that you specialized in. Another reason you may be getting rejected is because of a skill misalignment. A lot of us, I did this too, we focused a lot on our leadership experience. We led people, we did this, we did that with people, but then we failed to address the skills listed in the job description. So you always want to address the skills first that are listed in the job description, especially if they're technical skills. So you want to make sure to address those first. And then if you still have room in the resume to add other soft skills that you may have, it's good to do so. But always look at what the job description is asking for. If it's asking for certifications, project management certification, security plus, any industry certifications, and it says must have, and you don't have that certification yet, and you're probably working on it, and you get rejected, it's probably because you do not have that certification. Sometimes they'll make exceptions, and again, read the job description. It'll say willing to consider years of experience over certification or over education. So read the job description carefully. I know people get tired of reading all these job descriptions because they're applying to hundreds of jobs. And that's also a problem. If you're applying to hundreds of jobs, you're not being strategic. So make sure to take your time, read every job description, and make sure you meet the requirements. For defense contracting roles, most of the time you do have to meet 100% of the requirements listed on there, especially if it's only 3 requirements. If it says must have a top secret clearance, a bachelor's degree, 10 years minimum experience in project management, Intel, IT, whatever the role is, and you're missing any one of those, you're going to get rejected most likely. So be mindful of the requirements. I do tell people to still apply if you meet 80% of the requirements, because sometimes that recruiter will reach out again if your skills align with another role. So say you don't have the CI poly, but you have the TS, they may reach out and say, okay, we have this other role that's also interrelated or project management or logistics, and we just require a TS, a CI, or a secret, and you meet the requirements, so we'd like to move forward with you. So keep that in mind. Another reason some of you are getting rejected as well is because you are not completing your application. I did this.
Typically.
When I first applied to a role, it had me upload my resume. And then after I uploaded my resume, it said, enter your experience. And I'm thinking, why am I going to do that? Like, I just gave you my resume. It's on my resume, duh. So I would type in see resume. And that got me rejected quickly. And now being on the recruiter side of things, I'm like, oh, I see why. Because your application, it's like a binding document. You're saying that everything on there is truthful because you sign it. You digitally sign it. So make sure that your application is completely filled out. There's no missing parts. So side note here, a lot of you are using the Quick Apply or these third-party AI apps that tailor your resume to the job description and it will apply for you. The problem with that is that it's not filling out the applications. And when you're applying to clear jobs, you really want to fill out the application yourself because you're getting asked very specific questions regard to your background. The clearance question, you're going to get asked the clearance question. I'm seeing that showing up as blank or not answer at all. And some of you are not putting your clearance level on your resume. So that will get you rejected. So be mindful of that using these easy apply. I'm not telling you not to use them. Just make sure that you're submitting a complete application because sometimes it'll show up as blank on the recruiter's end and they'll just see your resume. But if your resume is missing information, again, they're just going to reject you. So I recommend going to the actual company website and applying directly to their website because then you'll know you'll actually be in their applicant tracking system and you'll have a complete application that you filled out yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Knockout question can be anything like, do you have a top secret clearance? And you say, no, I have a secret. That will get you rejected because there's no sense in moving forward at that point. You don't meet that minimum requirement to move forward. So that's sometimes happens. Or another question can be, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you available to start within 30 days of applying? And some of you will say no because you're still on active duty and you're probably 6 months out. So that can be an automatic rejection. So that's the application. So sometimes your resume is not getting you rejected. It's how you answer the questions in the application. And your application doesn't just disappear. It doesn't go into a black hole. It goes into a non-selected pot. So there's different areas. So move forward, rejected. So it might go into the rejected pile, but it doesn't go anywhere. It stays in the applicant tracking system for 2, 3, 4 years. It depends. Every state has their own requirements. So some are 2 years. I think California is like 10 years. They have to keep it in their system in case of litigation or there's audits to make sure there's no discrimination going on. So your application stays there. So I know there's a lot of buffoonery going on LinkedIn, people telling you, oh, your ATS, the ATS is eating your resume, never to be seen by a human person. That is not true. It just goes into a rejection pile and the recruiter can later on decide to look at it or not. Same thing with some ATSs can scan for keywords. Not all of them can, but some can. And they can do a percentage match or they can do like a grade ABC type of grading system and saying, okay, this person's an A, this person has an 80% match. And then the recruiter decides to reject you or move forward. So it's not going to just disappear. It stays in their system. And the fifth top reason that a lot of you are getting rejected is timing. Again, the application, if you say you're not available in 30 days, they'll probably reject you. Or maybe you'll move forward with the interview, with the phone screen with the recruiter, and they'll ask you these questions. And you're like, actually, I'm on active reservist orders right now, or I'm getting ready to deploy and I won't be available for 6 months. Then they will probably not move forward with you, because that role will probably be filled, most likely be filled before you come back from deployment or before you transition out of the military. So timing matters. I know it's nerve-wracking for a lot of us when we're transitioning because we're so used to getting our orders a year out, even 6 months out sometimes. So we have a lot of time to plan. In the civilian sector, it's a little bit different. 2 to 3 months is the sweet spot to apply to roles. So if you apply sooner than that, they will most likely reject you. Now, have I seen people get jobs when they were 6 months out? Absolutely, but they networked. They networked their little butts off, talked to people early on before they transition, built that relationship, and they're like, okay, you know what? We'll be waiting for you 6 months, 9 months out when you get out. So it does happen. but those people networked and they met the requirements and they were hard chargers and they impressed the employer. So that does happen. That you have to be able to show your skills and network. Okay. So now I'm ready to show somebody's resume. Thank you to the gentleman who volunteered his resume. I appreciate you.
Are you able to flip forward? You want me to? You got it.
And he has a sense of humor. He titled it The Dude. I told him to scrub his information to take off his name and email. So you can see the dude. He listed his clearance, TSSCI clearance. Great. He's good there. My only feedback is he has too many titles here. So I always recommend people to use the title that's listed in the job description. That way the recruiter knows right away what job you're applying for. So you're applying for a senior project management position or executive IT manager position, logistics specialist position. Put that on there. Mimic what's on the job title. But then you also have to meet the requirements. You can't say, you're going to be an astronaut and then not meet the requirements to be an astronaut. So make sure you meet the requirements and don't just pick a title just because it sounds cool. So I like that he says, he's building teams, enterprise intelligence. So I'm like, okay, so I know he's a big deal. However, when you start off with executive leader with 30 years of experience or retiring sergeant major with 20 plus years, 30 plus years experience, now you're automatically telling that recruiter, oh, they may be overqualified depending on the roles that you're applying for. So I see this a lot. I see a lot of senior officers, senior enlisted applying for junior level roles and getting rejected. The reason for that is because they're not looking for your level of expertise. They're looking for a junior person for a reason. And also they have a junior level budget. So a lot of people will say, Maris, I want to make $150,000 when I get out minimum. But the role you applied for maybe only pays $90,000. And so a lot of these employers know that you're probably going to leave. I mean, they're more than happy to take you on the cheap, but they know that eventually you will leave for higher pay because it happens. They've been burned in the past. So be mindful of that. Apply to the roles that are appropriate to your skill level and years of experience. So I wouldn't start with 30 years of experience. I would just say senior intelligence analyst, experienced in whatever that role requires. If you're looking for human, SIGINT, MN, all source, exercise planning, then you can speak to that and then address any other skills listed in the job description. So I can already tell this person is either senior officer or senior enlisted. Core experience. They have a lot of executive level role experience. So yes, and you go to the job titles, director. Next job title, director. So I'm like, okay, yes. And I like that he has metrics. He's saying how many people he led in each one. And I like that he also said for the acquisition portfolios exceeding 500 billion. Those are strong metrics right there. Those are strong project management skills if he's going for project management roles. Chief of International Crisis Response. He did strategic engagements. Operations director. And then his education, he has a master's. Went to the War College. Certifications. Awards. And you don't have to list your awards on your resume per se. I see a lot of people say that they got a NAM, a COM, but it doesn't really say what it did. Again, acronyms, they don't matter to recruiters, civilian recruiters, not because they don't care about your awards. They just don't understand what you got the award for or what it means. So it's better to write a bullet of how you obtained that medal.
I'd be curious too when they got their master's degree, because I have a feeling it's recent. Like if it's within the last 5 years, I'd definitely include that on a resume.
Yeah, you can if it was recent, but if it was like in 1980, I wouldn't do that.
True. So over 10 years is a no.
So for the most part, I don't, because I work with a lot of senior enlisted, a lot of senior officers. I usually don't put their degree on there unless it was recent, or if it's a recent certification like a PMP Security Plus, then yes, I will put that on there in the credential ID. But they'll still verify as long as it's on your resume somewhere and you can clearly show it. You're good to go. Okay, so this gentleman sent me 2 job descriptions, which actually I'm glad he did. So this one is from a defense contracting company. So he sent me 2 defense contracting roles. And this is for a senior intelligence analyst. So I highlighted in yellow things that recruiters are scanning for on your resume. This blue highlight that you see on there, upcoming bid in support, that's important for you guys to know because, and gals, I call everybody guys, but I'm including the gals too. It's important for you guys to know because that's telling me that that contract, that job doesn't exist yet. They're in the bidding process. So if you're willing to wait for them to win the contract, when they eventually, if they even win the bid, then fine, apply. But if you needed a job like yesterday, I wouldn't apply to these types of roles. So when you apply for defense contracting roles, it's always a good idea to get in the habit of asking the recruiter, do you already have a contract? How long is the contract good for? So that way it helps you plan. If they're about to recompete the contract in 6 months, you're taking a gamble that they will get that contract again. So keep that in mind. So in your resume, I want to see that you did planning and implementation of training programs, that you managed team of scenario developers. You have experience with battle space, simulation, integration. You have experience supervising implementation of communication systems, at least 3 years in IT management. Now, for here, something I want to show you guys. When it says 3 years experience in the past 5 years, that's letting me know this is more of a junior, maybe mid-level role. And remember, his resume said he has over 30 years of experience. So I'm already thinking, you may not be qualified for this role. Maybe. We'll see. I'm going to show you the resume again.
Okay. You're thinking overqualified.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So, and there's a lot of acronyms here, which drives me nuts when contracting companies do it too. You know, but they're expecting you to know what that is. So like the JLC, CTC, IWETPT, all those have to do with training environments.
Yeah. And a couple of those are quantifiable as far as like planning and implementation of training programs, supporting blank number of trainees, or managing a 10-person team of scenario developer. You could just say a 10-person team, I guess, but if you could add the scenario developers, that would be extra.
Yeah, and the exercises that were led, how many exercises, what was the scope, how big? So when I was an exercise planner, I led a large event that involved 10,000 troops. It was a huge stuff. I had to come up with the scenarios and manage other scenario developers. So those are the kind of things that, as a recruiter, if I'm reading this, I want to see that in the resume. So I highlighted some of the words on his resume that may match this job description. So here's his resume again. Okay, so he has the clearance. Okay, he has the enterprise intelligence. Okay, he has the intel background. He's done operations. He's led and mentored 370 member team. Okay, great. Implemented Power BI. So he does have IT management experience overseeing that stuff. But then I couldn't see anything else that matched the job description. So I'm going to the next one. Okay, crisis response. Okay, he delivered courses, modernized analytic training standards, but nowhere on there is he explaining his exercise experience. And he probably does have it. 30 years of experience, Intel, very senior. I'm sure he's probably led some of these exercises, but it's not in this resume. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes people have the experience, but if you're not proving it on your resume, it's as if it didn't happen, as if you don't have the experience. And so this is a frustration I see a lot with transition service members. Like, Marissa, I do have this experience. Okay, well, now you have to prove it. It's like building a case. Can you be charged with being guilty of having experience, doing this exercise training? So make sure you have the evidence in there. And your resume doesn't have to include every single thing you did. So that's another issue. So people get anxiety trying to fit 30 years of experience into a 2-page resume because they're like, I want to make sure I don't miss out on anything. And that's the problem. You need to hit the highlights. So consider your resume like a point paper, basically. You're hitting the highlights for the reader. You want to give them a quick snapshot of what you bring to the table, what skills you have, how much money can you make the company, how much money can you save them, and what processes can you improve. That's what they want to see. So that's why I tell you guys, just focus on the skills listed in the job description. Your experience will never change. Your experience is your experience in the military, but you can pull out information from every duty station that specifically focuses on exercise planning for this particular job description. Okay, now he sent me another job description. This is for an operations team chief. They're looking for strategic, tactical, DOT male PF. Again, that has to do with the training as well, warfighter exercises. And here, you see this very rarely. Well, it'll say you have warrant officer, sergeant major. I never write people's rank or job titles on the resume unless the job description asks for it. So you always want to civilianize your job titles whenever possible, unless you're applying to defense contracting roles or federal roles that actually say you must have this kind of experience in the military. So his is missing that. So we don't know if he was a sergeant major or maybe he was an 06. I think he was probably closer to being an 06.
To the just mind of the recruiter, right? Yeah, take yourself out and try to pretend that you are the recruiter for a second.
Yeah, but because I'm a veteran, and and I did exercise plan, I've been around 06s and flag officers, I can deduce, or someone can deduce that he's most likely an 06. Mm-hmm. But the recruiter won't know that. So spell it out. If it's asking for it, spell it out. It's asking for a bachelor's degree. And then where it says nice to have, it's just a nice to have. It's not a deal breaker if you don't have it. If you don't have the master's degree, that's fine. If you don't have the PMP certification, it's fine. Just know that those candidates who have all the nice to haves will probably get looked at first, but it doesn't mean they'll get the job because they still have to interview. So sometimes the most qualified person will still not get the job. It just depends on how well they can articulate their experience during the interview.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to his resume. And just from comparing different words from the previous job description, I can see that he is more qualified for this role.
Absolutely.
But he still needs to talk about.
Just for those of you on here, as you comment, you feel free to comment like what role you think they would be a better fit for. Again, step into the mind of a recruiter for a second.
So he has an impressive resume for director level, maybe VP type of roles in certain companies. It depends on the size of the company as well. And don't focus too much on the titles, focus on the skills. What transferable skills do you have for those positions? For him, he meets the requirements. So I would reach out to him and get more information for this particular role and say, okay, tell me more. The first job description, I will probably reject them because he didn't show how he met those requirements. But for this one, I will call and say, I need more information. Talk to me about some of the exercise that you've done. And if anything, I think he might be overqualified for this role, just from my knowledge of an 06. Mm-hmm. And he has the master's degree. He has the war college experience. He's trained a lot of people, delivering 58 courses and 21 mobile training events for 630 personnel. He has the operations backgrounds, strategic intelligence, crisis response. He has an impressive background, but he still needs to make sure that that recruiter knows that he has an impressive background, be able to articulate it via phone screen and also on the resume that he meets those requirements. Do we still have time for a Q&A? I think I went over my time.
No, that's okay. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and pop your QR code on the screen just in case. I know we said 30 minutes, so if anyone wants one-on-one time with Marisol, that now is a great time to scan that QR code and schedule some time with her. The other thing is, if you guys can go ahead and leave some comments and let us know. I know we have some folks that join in a little bit later or are watching the replay. But so one of the top questions I get is, should you put your security clearance level on your LinkedIn? I know that's like really tricky, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I will not tell you to do it. I will not tell you to not do it. I'm going to tell you, be an adult and understand that some companies have rules and regulations against that. The funny part is that when you do list your clearance on your LinkedIn profile, recruiters will find you and then they'll try to hire you for that role. But then you'll get hired and that company will say, okay, you can no longer list your clearance on LinkedIn. Just kind of silly. So be mindful of the rules and regulations. If you're still on active duty, check with your command. But when I go on LinkedIn, if you do a TSSCI search of job seekers, it'll show over 50,000 people who have put their clearance level on their headline. Okay. It's not illegal. There's nothing against it. People say, oh, it's an OPSEC violation. I mean, are you sharing information on LinkedIn that, is there classified stuff on your LinkedIn profile? I still have a clearance, but you're not going to catch me posting anything classified on LinkedIn. And there's nothing classified in my about section, in my experience section. Actually, I challenge you guys to check my experience section, my about section. There's nothing classified on there. So, but I don't have my clearance on there because I just don't need to. I'm not actively seeking a job at the moment.
Yeah.
So
there's sense.
That. So use your judgment. Bottom line is use your judgment.
Okay, that's good advice. I know you talked about this a little bit as far as ATS. So many people think that like their resume is going into a black hole, which, as you said, is not true. It's typically looked at by a human. So when you're writing a resume, are you balancing writing to an ATS and writing to a human, or are you mostly just focused on, I'm going to write to the human?
I'm writing to the human, basically, okay. and meeting the requirements. So when I write a resume, a client's resume, that's why I ask them to provide a job description. Mm-hmm. And then I walk the client line by line through the job description and ask them, okay, it says here you have to have experience in X, Y, and Z. Do you have experience in X, Y, and Z? Oh, I have experience in X and Y, but not Z. Okay, we can still work with that. And if they keep telling me, no, I don't have experience with this or that, then I'll give them candid feedback and say, I don't think you're qualified for this role. Maybe we should focus more on the skills you do have that you can still use, and then try to find roles that actually align with the skills you currently have. And then write the resume for the human eye, because recruiters are scanning resumes. They're spending less than 30 seconds on your resume. So you want to show them that the clearance is there on your resume, that you have the years of experience. They're asking for the hard skills and technical skills listed in the job description, the education piece, and any certifications that are listed on there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another thing you mentioned too was, well, we've talked about this in the past as well, as I'll have clients that come back to me and have said, like, I've applied for over 100 jobs and I haven't heard back, or I've heard back from 2. And I'm thinking, and I know we're probably both thinking, 100 jobs? Are you really qualified for 100 jobs that are out there right now? That seems like a lot. And so the examples that you showed were perfect, because it's like, okay, maybe a little underqualified, maybe still a little underqualified, but I found that clients will go underqualified or overqualified, but have a hard time finding that exact job that is a good fit. Do you find the same thing when people just kind of spray and pray their resume?
Yes, they'll apply to maybe 5 roles within the same company and use the same exact resume. And that's a red flag to the recruiter and the hiring manager. Like, wait a minute. No, now you're just so now they're not taking you seriously because they're seeing that you're just trying to get whatever you can catch instead of tailoring it. But if you apply to 5 different roles within the company, you actually tailor the resume to each job description, you have a better chance of getting that phone screen. Because it's true, you may not have been qualified for this one role, but this other role, you meet the requirements a lot better than maybe for the first role you applied for. But you still have to show that in your resume. And a generic example I use all the time as far as tailoring, because people think I'll have to rewrite the resume. You only have to rewrite it if none of it makes sense. But if it's, industry specific, like it's an Intel role, project management role, and you're sticking to those roles, then you just have to do minor edits. So as an example, if the bullet says must have experience eating hot dogs, and you have experience eating hot dogs, create a bullet about your hot dog eating experience. And if the next job description, has all the skills listed that you have, but then it says must have experience eating hamburgers, go back and swap out the hot dog eating bullet for the hamburger eating bullet. Yes, because exactly. The hot dog eating bullet, they don't care. I mean, it's great if you have it, but they specifically want to see that you have the skills that they're asking for in their job description. So again, read the job description. People aren't reading job descriptions, and it's costing them potential jobs.
Absolutely. And I had a client that came back to me for a resume update that I'm working on right now, that they have Navy experience working with like data analysis and validation and all of that. And then they switched to a contractor role where they're doing Army logistics specific data analysis. And so we had to kind of not white, but because his Navy experience is always going to be there. But that summary of qualifications, the top third, we erased any Navy specific experience and just focused on the Army specific, because that is the job that he was applying for, and those certain systems, which I can't remember off the top of my head, all the acronym soup, that was our main focus. So I primarily change and tailor the top third. And so I don't know if you're kind of similar as far as that's where you spend the most time.
Yeah, the top third of your resume is the most important part of your resume, because again, recruiters are scanning very quickly. So get to the point, show your clearance level, you're applying to cleared roles. If you previously had a clearance, it's fine. Some people do that, but if the job says must have active clearance, it's not going to really help you. So it's a waste of space, waste of real estate. So I would just take that space to write another bullet for something else that's more relevant to the job description. The summary, make it short and to the point. Some recruiters won't read them because they're long-winded. They're like this big block of summary, and they'll just breeze through it. But I think the summary section is a great opportunity to list anything, like maybe you're not available until July of 2027 or December of 2026. It's a good place to have little notes that recruiters can see, or that you're willing to relocate. Maybe you're overseas right now, you're in Japan or Italy, and you're looking for jobs in New York. Then you could add a little sentence in the summary section that you're relocating to New York in August of 2026 and available to start September 1st or something like that. So you can treat your summary section as a mini cover letter, because not every job requires a cover letter, nor will they read it if you submit one. So again, read the job description. If it requires a cover letter, write it. If it doesn't require a cover letter, don't write it. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah, it seems like cover letters are a bit of a dying document. They'll have their reinsurgence, and then you don't see it.
It depends on the industry. In defense contracting, it's really not needed. They just want to make sure that you meet the check in the box, really. So they don't really care for cover letters. But I know, like at universities or mental health, certain industries still require them. The hiring manager requires them. The recruiter doesn't care. It's really, those cover letters are usually for the hiring manager.
Yep. I'm going to highlight this question from Joseph. So I hear that employers recommend limiting resumes to 2 pages. How should candidates address situations where a job posting requires experience or accomplishments from, say, 10 years ago that may not fit within a 2-page resume? Yeah, that is a common question.
Yeah, so I like to do a careers highlight section. So after the summary section, technical skills, I'll do a career highlights that talks about those skills. So I'll use myself an example. I was an ER nurse before I went into the intelligence community. So say I wanted to go back into nursing, I would do a careers highlight, and my resume, even my summary section, would focus on my nursing skills. So ER nurse with experience in triaging, patient care, wound care, whatever. And then my highlights would also talk about that. And again, my experience is my experience. So my last 10 years have been Intel. So I can't ignore that job, but I can maybe decrease the number of bullets, maybe do 1 or 2 bullets and focus on how I triage naval intelligence priorities, how I use my critical thinking skills that are required for nursing. And then again, in the summary section, explain, okay, previously was a nurse, going back into nursing, updated license and required certifications. So I want to give them enough information to make them curious. That's the key. You want to make them curious and you want them to call you. So once you get that phone call, you can explain, okay, I used to be a nurse. I did Intel, but I miss nursing. Now I want to get back into it. And this is what I've done to stay current in those skills, because sometimes they may not consider you if those skills are outdated. So you still need to show that you've done something, whether it's journals, volunteer work. So if, say, you're a website designer and you haven't been paid for it, but maybe you volunteered to do the libraries or a local school's website, that still counts as volunteer, as a work, even if it was a volunteer environment.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that just putting it in the summary is so key. And then sometimes what I'll do is if it's past the 10 years and they still want to include the job title, I might just include the job title, the location, the dates, and maybe 1 bullet, maybe. But again, I think you addressed that perfectly, that it's really the summary where you want to highlight that previous experience.
You can also do another other experience section too and not put the dates. Because again, you want them to call you. You want them.
That's a good one. No,
you want to make them curious.
Yeah. Yes, that's actually a really good suggestion. We have time for maybe a couple more, if that's okay, if you have time, Marisol. If your clearance, this is a common one, if your clearance isn't active but could be reinstated, how do you annotate that? See, I sometimes put inactive, did it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can, but again, if the job description says you must have an active clearance, it's kind of pointless to put that on there. They're just gonna be like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Best advice is to look at job descriptions that say must be willing to obtain. That means they will sponsor you.
Okay. And I would also circle back to the start of this video when Marisol talked about staying in contact with your,
SSO. SSO or FSO. Yes, get a letter from them before you leave the military. That's for you. So you're aware of when you were last adjudicated and also your clearance eligibility. So that's so you don't forget. So if you decide to not work for 2 years and just take a break and you can afford to do that, just know that if your clearance goes unsponsored for 2 years, it will become inactive. And good luck getting it reactivated. Good luck finding a company that will take the time and wait for you to have the background reinvestigated.
See, I almost wonder if a subprime contractor, okay, so there's the prime and the subprime, if they have a better chance with a subprime contractor or someone that they know. No, it doesn't matter. Or someone who's a friend who starts a contract company and would be willing to.
If you have the hookup. Yeah, that could work.
That's where,
but it's also need to know basis. They're not going to just give you a clearance just because. So it's need to know basis too.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Oh, that reminds me. Side note about the clearance, need to know basis. I've had people that have applied and they had a TSSCI, but the job only required a secret. And so then they got, downgraded to a secret. So be mindful of that.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
Because need to
I
know.
need to know. I think that covers most of our questions. And since we're coming up on about 45 minutes here, we're going to end the stream. Thank you all for joining us. Again, if you're rewatching this, you can scan this QR code up at the top to talk to Marisol. If you are not TSSCI or not cleared, also I do serve as a resume writer. So either one of us, you're going to have a great experience. Thank you so much for joining us, Marisol, and sharing your wisdom and advice. And yeah, hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Hopefully everybody learned something new today. And good luck to all the job seekers out there. You got this. Read the job
You got
description.
this. Yeah. Yeah, read the job description. Bye, y'all.